Welcome back to Only Talk Sports. We talk sports every single day, or at least we try to. I'm Ernest Jeffrey. Subscribe to the channel if you like sports content. Hit that notification bell so you never miss another video. There are a lot of coaches in college football that are on the hot seat, and most of them are from smaller schools. But you talk about a big-name head coach that's been on the hot seat for a very long time. So long that I made a video on it 11 months ago. We're talking about none other than Jimbo Fisher, the head coach of Texas A&M football. And Jimbo Fisher is a guy that is making a ton of money because Texas A&M decided to give him a contract extension when he barely really deserved one, but that was Texas A&M's decision. And right now, Jimbo Fisher's buyout is still $76.8 million, which is an astronomical amount. You could argue Texas A&M, you can fire Jimbo Fisher, you've got the money, you've got a lot of boosters, they can pay off that money, no big deal, but still, do you really want to just throw away $76.8 million to get a new head coach when you're the one that hired him in the first place? But we got to break down why Jimbo Fisher's on the hot seat, because a program really must want to get rid of a guy if he has a buyout of that much money and you still are potentially thinking of firing him. Now, we don't know if Texas A&M is on the brink of firing Jimbo Fisher, but if you do look at the comparisons between the previous head coach Kevin Sumlin and Jimbo Fisher right now, it makes a ton of sense why Jimbo Fisher is definitely on the hot seat. Because look at Kevin Sumlin's record. He was 51-26 and 25-23 in the SEC as the head football coach of Texas A&M over 6 seasons from 2012 to 2017. And most football programs in college football would love to have a record like that. Look at the record. 51-26. You're winning way over 60% of your games. You're making bowl games year in and year out. That is a really good record. But at Texas A&M, you're getting top recruiting classes. If you look at the recruiting classes that Kevin Sumlin brought in, they are ridiculous. He brought in the 9th ranked class in 2013, the 5th ranked class in 2014, the 11th ranked class in 2015, the 18th ranked class in 2016, and the 13th ranked class in 2017. Now, those numbers are not as good as what Jimbo Fisher has done with recruiting at Texas A&M, and we'll get to those numbers, but Kevin Sumlin did a really good job getting talented players in, and he always had Texas A&M competing in the SEC, but they were never at the top of the conference. They were never able to compete with Alabama, Auburn, LSU, and some of the other top programs in the conference, and that is ultimately what got Kevin Sumlin fired. But see, Kevin Sumlin did not have a ridiculous buyout of $76 million either. Kevin Sumlin, they were just able to fire him for a few $1,000,000, no big deal. He was out the door, and Texas A&M was able to hire their next head football coach, which at the time, hiring Jimbo Fisher seemed like a slam dunk hire, because when he came in from Florida State, his record was 83-23 with the Seminoles, and he won a national title in 2013 with Jameis Winston as his quarterback. It did start to trail a little down toward the end of his tenure at Florida State. He went 5-6 in his last season, but DeAndre Francois did get injured that year, so that wasn't completely Jimbo Fisher's fault, but still, he knew that he needed to get out at Florida State because things were starting to trend in the wrong direction. Florida State has a passionate fan base that wants to win, and Jimbo was recruiting really well there also. And there isn't as much competition in the ACC, so you should be winning at least 9 or 10 games a season, which Jimbo Fisher did outside of that last season at Florida State. But he goes over to Texas A&M, and most Aggie fans, I remember the reports when he was hired. This is one of the top hires that Texas A&M could have possibly had. Maybe he could end up winning a national title or two at the Aggies and have a lot of success and be able to challenge Nick Saban in the SEC, but that has not been the case whatsoever. If you look at what Jimbo Fisher's done at Texas A&M, it is just like Kevin Sumlin. He has gone 44-25 at Texas A&M, which is worse than what Kevin Sumlin has done at 51-26, and his conference record's 26-21, which is a bit better than the 25-23 of Kevin Sumlin, but it's about the same. And if you look at Jimbo Fisher's record year over year, A&M, it's going in the wrong direction. He started out 9-4, then he went 8-5, and then in 2020 he went 9-1, but that's a year that a lot of people throw out the window because there were so many intricacies about that year that made it different. So A&M going 9-1, a lot of people think that was a fluke. Then they went 8-4 in 2021, 5-7 last year with the #1 ranked recruiting class in the 2022 class, which we'll get to the other recruiting classes that Jimbo Fisher has brought in. And so far this season, they are 5-4. Now, granted, the last loss for Texas A&M was to the Ole Miss Rebels. They barely lost that football game 38-35, and they were a blocked field goal away from tying the game and potentially being able to win the game if they were able to get a big stop against the Ole Miss Rebels in overtime. But the problem for Texas A&M is, it's been a common theme. It's almost like Scott Frost at Nebraska, but a way bigger problem with Jimbo Fisher at Texas A&M, because Scott Frost did not have as much talent at Nebraska. Now, granted, he should not have been losing so many close one-score games, but it does feel like Jimbo Fisher is losing way too many close games. So many games that they could possibly win. And they are not as good as they were when they had Kellen Mond at quarterback. Especially early on, they were very competitive against Alabama and some of the top teams in the conference. And now, even though they did beat Alabama back in 2021 in Kyle Field, outside of that win, what else has Texas A&M done? They've lost to teams like Appalachian State. They've lost to teams like Mississippi State. They're not being competitive against the top of the sport, even if they do compete against Alabama very competitively every year. And they did have a good performance against Ole Miss. But the reason why this matters is because of the fact that he's getting paid so much money at Texas A&M. They want him to win. $77 million buyout aside, he's getting paid a lot of money a year. He's one of the highest paid head coaches in college football. And even though Texas A&M made the mistake of giving him the contract extension, he was getting paid a lot of money per year before that. So if he didn't have the big buyout, he would have already been gone, which is what I said in my video last year when I talked about it. The buyout's what's keeping him. If it wasn't for that, he would have already been fired. And the recruiting classes make it worse, because in the 2018 class, he had the 17th ranked class in his first season at Texas A&M after he took over for Kevin Sumlin. In 2019, he had the 4th ranked class. In 2020, he had the 6th ranked class. In 2021, the 8th. The 2022, the infamous #1 overall ranked recruiting class. The 2023 class, it was 15th. And then in the 2024 class, so far, he has the 9th highest ranked class in college football. Now, the issue is that there's been a lot of problems with Texas A&M's roster. A lot of guys have gotten in trouble in the locker room, but it makes a big difference when you're not winning. When you are winning, like with Georgia, all the incidences that they've had with Kirby Smart, a head coach, and some of their players, it doesn't matter because Georgia's winning. But at A&M, when you have issues like that as well, it compounds with the fact that you are not winning. And if Nick Saban had these recruiting classes at Texas A&M, do you think that his record would be 44-25? There's no way. Do you think Kirby Smart would be 44-25? I understand that it's the SEC West and you're going up against LSU, Ole Miss, Auburn, Alabama, all these tough football teams, but still Texas A&M should be doing better than what they're doing with these great recruiting classes. And what's even worse is that a lot of these guys end up transferring out of the program. So Texas A&M has lost a lot of guys that they brought in with these big recruiting classes. Yes, they're able to replace a lot of them with portal guys, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't change the fact that Texas A&M, for whatever rhyme or reason, is not winning enough. They're not winning more than they did under Kevin Sumlin. And if it wasn't for the buyout, Texas A&M would have already pulled the trigger and fired Jimbo Fisher as the head coach of Texas A&M, like they did with Kevin Sumlin, who a lot of people thought they fired him too early, which he went out to Arizona, did not have success, but we don't know how Kevin Sumlin's tenure would have continued at A&M if he did not get fired. Maybe it would have continued to go in the wrong direction, but we'll never know. But Jimbo Fisher, I don't want him to get fired. I don't want anybody to get fired. It is definitely not my nature to get excited when coaches do get fired, but the facts are the facts. I can't deny it. No one else can deny it. If the writing's on the wall for Jimbo Fisher, the only thing that's keeping him afloat is the recruiting success that he's had, but more importantly, the buyout money. A&M is not willing to pay the $77 million right now, but after another year or two, if it drops to around $60 or $50 million, they could end up firing Jimbo Fisher, and heck, maybe they will end up firing him after this season. And after December 1st, 2023, the money is going to drop a little bit from the $76 million, so we'll have to see. A&M has a lot of money, and you talk about a program that has not won a national title in college football since 1940. They have not won anything at the top of the sport. They've been competitive against a lot of the best teams when they were in the Big 12 and now that they're in the SEC, but they've never been able to get over the hump and be a top-tier college football program despite all the recruiting success they've had, despite all the donors and the money that the Aggies have. They pay more money than almost any other college in college football. They want to win. They want to be at the top of the sport, and if Jimbo Fisher's not going to get him there, then he's definitely going to be on the way out really soon. The buyout's the only thing keeping him there, but Jimbo Fisher's definitely on the hot seat, and if he was at almost any other college in college football, a 44-25 record would be enough to save his job, but not at Texas A&M. He's going to have to do more, and if he does not, he eventually will be fired. He'll have a big buyout to take with him, but he will no longer be the head coach of Texas A&M, and the Aggies are going to have to find a head coach that's going to be able to do a better job record-wise than Jimbo Fisher and Kevin Sumlin, or it's just going to be a revolving door of Texas A&M going 8-4, before having great recruiting classes, never having success at the top of the sport, and plenty of more coaches that are going to be fired with a lot of money, just like Jimbo Fisher and Kevin Sumlin. But you never know, maybe Jimbo Fisher can turn all this around and have the Aggies toward the top of college football and in the SEC, but with each passing day, that unfortunately seems less likely. Subscribe to the channel if you like sports content, like this video down below, comment down below what you think about the Jimbo Fisher situation at Texas A&M, and whether you think that the only reason he's still there is because of the big buyout money, and whether you think he'll be fired at the end of this season, or next season, or possibly the season after that, or whether you think that Jimbo Fisher can turn it around at Texas A&M and he'll be able to save his job. Follow me on Twitter as well, link is in the description, and I will see you next time.